Heyo and welcome to How Would You Build, a little series in which I take your favorite characters from fiction, fantasy, and all forms of media and attempt to build them in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. In this series, we'll be using all source books from Wizards of the Coast except the 2024 revision of the Player's Handbook. If you have any suggestions for characters, make sure to drop them in the comments, join the Discord to post an official request on the DnD channel, or ask me directly on my coffee. Additionally, the full character build written down with backstory suggestions will be available there as well, along with some other free builds. In this episode, we will be building the Son of Sparta, the legendary devil hunter, Dante, from Devil May Cry. This build will contain spoilers for the Netflix show along with DMC5 and a few spoilers from the other forms of media that he shows up in. So if you haven't gone through those, I thoroughly recommend that you immerse yourself in the wonderful universe of Devil May Cry and have a blast with our wacky woohoo pizza man. If you don't care about spoilers though, we will try our best to build this absolutely ravaging character as close as possible to what we see in the show and in the game. This means that we want a character who is insanely over the top, eccentric, but deeply caring of human life and those close to him. Dante will be all about delivering stylish beatdowns, drowning enemies in hails of gunfire, and terrifying strikes with his main weapon, the Devil Longsword, Rebellion. We'll supplement his innate abilities with some demonic power to really go all out with a little healing, a lot of resilience, and the ability to use his signature defensive ability, Royal Guard, to block most damage and most attacks. Most important above all though, we will replicate Dante's Devil Trigger and Sin Devil Trigger from the show and DMC5. These will allow Dante to unleash nearly 400 average damage by the end of the build, and anywhere from 2 to 3 digits all throughout the build, truly putting fear in those pesky demons.
Jackpot!
For Dante's ability scores, we're going to generate them using the standard array. Starting off, we'll have Dante's main and highest stat be Charisma at 15. After all, everything he does is for style points, and there is no other like Dante at that department. Next, we have 14 in Dexterity and 13 in Intelligence, 2 scores which represent Dante's innate speed and reflexes, while keeping up with a sharp, very witty intellect that few can detect under his brash attitude. 12 in Constitution allows us to keep Dante's health at an acceptable threshold, but we'll cover this high durability that we see with a mix of temporary hit points and Royal Guard. Finally, we dump Strength and Wisdom since our Devil Hunter is rarely in control of himself, and his power mostly stems from his demonic nature and special weapons. Both of these will be emulated with our class abilities and a little sprinkle of demonic power.
Jackpot!
For Dante's race, we could pick Tiefling or maybe even Human, but we are gonna go with Aasimar, increasing our Charisma by 2 points and our Dexterity by 1 point. This race grants us also 60 feet of dark vision along with resistance to necrotic and radiant damage, and a little bit of healing with healing hands, so that we can stay in the fight and recover after tanking a little hit as Dante. Additionally, we also get Light Bearer, which lets us cast the light cantrip to pull out a lighter and shine some light into the darkest parts of the world. And finally, and most importantly, at level 3 we will pick the Celestial Revelation, Radiant Soul. This will be Dante's Devil Trigger. In the Sin Devil Trigger form, he has functional wings and can float off the ground, so flight speed makes sense for Dante. In this build, we'll unleash it right before delivering a deadly flurry of damage. While it's true that Dante is a half-demon and Tiefling might be more accurate, reflavoring the transformation of Aasimar is also extremely accurate to his Devil Trigger. Resistance to necrotic and radiant damage also gives him resilience against angelic and demonic beings, along with a little healing to keep him healthy whenever he does end up being hit.
Jackpot!
For Dante's background, we will build a custom background Devil Hunter. For the skills, we get Investigation and Persuasion, the language is Abyssal, and the tools, land, vehicles to make sure that Dante can ride around in his motorbike. For the equipment, we will take the equipment from House Agent, a set of fine clothes for his signature red trench coat, and instead of the House Signet ring, we'll grab his half of the amulet instead. And finally, 20 gold pieces to get him started on his Sunday and pizza binge. For the feature, we get Heart of Darkness. Dante has gone through a terrible loss during his childhood, and he was left forever changed by it. His elder brother is gone, and he was left to fend for himself with a shattered family. While his general bravado and devil-may-care attitude doesn't leave very many people wishing to be his friend, Dante does still gather allies and believers to his cause, without trying particularly hard.
Jackpot!
For For our first level, we begin as a level 1 fighter. This grants Dante proficiency in simple and martial weapons along with all armors and shields. This also gives him proficiency in the saving throws of strength and constitution along with the skills of acrobatics and perception. While in the long run, it isn't particularly important what equipment we have. For deadly campaigns that require surviving earlier levels, we will get leather armor and a longbow with 20 arrows. For martial weapons, we obtain a lighter version of Rebellion that his father trained him with, in the form of a rapier and a shield to engage in defensive tactics, something the Dark Knight Sparta definitely would have taught Dante. Finally, we can choose the crossbow and 20 bolts to stay safely in range during the first few weaker levels, and an explorer's pack to keep cozy as those deadly levels go by. For the first level feature we get as a fighter, we have the dueling fighting style. Dante wields Rebellion with one hand most of the time, and when he does wield it with two hands, it's usually for extra style points. For now, this closes the gap in damage between two-handed strength weapons and our one-handed weapon. Finally, at this level, we get Second Wind. This will be an extra pool of healing representing Dante's demonic form and his rapid recovery of it. Make sure to use this before a short rest to save up on hit dice since it comes back on a short rest as well. For our second level, we get another final level of fighter, and this grants us Action Surge. This will be just a little push to keep that combo going. We'll be using this ability to go truly wild in our upcoming levels and unleash a flurry of shots from our seemingly endless supply of bullets and mighty swings of our sword. For level 3, we will get a level of Warlock. At this level, remember that we get our Celestial Revelation Radiant Soul to begin to manifest their demonic power and eventually have a Devil Trigger. But coming back to Warlock, we also get Pact Magic. This means that we recover our spell slots on short rest and that all Dante needs to refuel is a Strawberry Sundae. For the subclass, we get the Hexblade. Dante has come into possession of the demonic longsword Rebellion, or maybe even another one of the weapons from DMC. Depending on how you choose to follow it, his power is enhanced in the end, and the goal will be to eventually merge with the powers of the weapon when his demonic blood is activated. But it's important to note that most of Dante's powers come from the equipment that he has, and particularly from his sword and the relationship it has with his blood. For the subclass features, we get Hexblade's Curse, which will simply be Dante focusing down an enemy and unleashing demonic fury on them. Later down the line, this will cause many critical hits and a massive chunk of damage when Dante pulls his Devil Trigger to obliterate a particular foe. Hex Warrior will be our second feature, and this makes sense. All for style. Charisma to weapon attacks is simply Dante twirling and twisting around the battlefield, obliterating enemies without a single care in the world. The strength of this subclass, embedding everything in charisma, makes a lot of sense when it comes to Dante. For our spells, we first have the cantrips Eldritch Blast and Sword Burst, and the first level spells Hex and Shield. Eldritch Blast will be the bread and butter of this build. Dante has obtained Ebony and Ivory, and his demonic energy can unload an endless stream of bullets. With the later levels, we'll even do something pretty interesting with it. Sword Burst will represent the spectral summoned swords that swing after his own swings of Rebellion when he activates the weapon with his blood in DMC5. At later levels, we can even swing and cast this cantrip at the same time. Hex, along with Hexblade's Curse, allows for progressively greater damage on a big, beefy enemy or just a dangerous boss to truly wear them down with demonic fury and might. If someone in your party likes to grapple as well, make sure to debuff the enemy's corresponding acrobatics or athletics to resist it as well. After all, Dante crushes his enemy's abilities by all but a cocky look, and the occasional finger gun. Shield will conclude all the spells at this level and begin our iteration of Royal Guard as Dante sits there taunting his foes while effortlessly deflecting threatening attacks. For level 4, we get a second level of Warlock, and this grants us the invocations Agonizing Blast and Fiendish Vigor. Agonizing Blast in here is particularly necessary, since putting our shots with Ebony and Ivory need to be particularly deadly to even demons. Adding our charisma modifier to them allows us to achieve that. Fiendish Vigor also lets Dante keep 8 temporary hit points for a long while, increasing his survivability massively. If your DM is grumpy about letting you get the max temporary hit points, just recast the spell over and over until you get it. For Pact casting, we get another spell. This time we're going to get Protection from Evil and Good. This allows Dante to remain cocky and confident even when faced by the deepest horrors of the darkest depths of hell. Just keep confident, and even those terrors will be left guessing, unaware to your truly terrifying nature. For level 5, we get our first level of Wizard. I know, it's a little weird, but hear me out. While Dante doesn't particularly use a spellbook, he does prepare an arsenal of devil arms and other mundane weapons to be summoned on a whim, so preparing your wizard spells can represent that versatility, either enhancing your already present options or expanding with new ones. Arcane Recovery will simply be Dante recovering some of his power on a short rest, making making that sundae even more appetizing. The spells we get at this level are very numerous. We'll start with cantrips. First off, we get Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, and Mending. Mage Hand and Minor Illusion will both be Dante using his demonic energy to summon up or move objects around for his silly shenanigans and spawn a cowboy hat out of absolutely nowhere. Mending, on the other hand, will help him use that energy to keep his clothes from ending up absolutely tattered after a particularly chaotic fight. We will make it look like any slashes or shots will leave a red-hot mark that vanish after seconds, leaving the clothes absolutely pristine. For first level spells, we obtain the following 6 spells: Absorb Elements, Feather Fall, Mage Armor, Magic Missile, Detect Magic, and Unseen Servant. Absorb Elements and Mage Armor will allow us to wear absolutely nothing while having decent AC, which we can bolster with Royal Guard when necessary. Feather Fall will let Dante launch himself off of buildings only to land perfectly safe. You can also feel free to crack the ground on landing for additional dramatic effect. Magic Missile will be used as the finishing shots to ensure an enemy dies, and later down the line can be incorporated into our Sin Devil Trigger to unleash a barrage of tracking projectiles on the foe. Interestingly, if they are affected by our Hexblade's curse, every hit of Magic Missile adds the bonus proficiency damage, making it incredibly deadly on single targets without the shield spell. Finally, Detect Magic and Unseen Servant both add to Dante's perceptive powers over demonic energies and his ability to move objects around telekinetically. At level 6, we get our second level of Wizard, and the subclass we will pick is Blade Singing. This subclass grants us 2 features. The first one is Training in War and Song, which only grants us proficiency in performance, but this makes sense since Dante likes to unleash killer moves on the dance floor after getting that triple S combo. For the second feature, we get Blade Song. Our Devil Hunter is fast, reactive, and extremely hard to pin down, and while this bonus is not particularly high right now, it'll be as high as wielding a shield in our offhand later on. Feel free to add magic items like Bracers of Defense or Headbands of Intellect if you like high numbers. Let's not forget that activating Blade Song grants us the following bonuses: 10 feet of movement speed, and also adding your intelligence modifier to your AC and concentration checks, along with advantage to twirling around using acrobatics. For spells at this level, we get Long Strider and Silent Image. Long Strider grants Dante even more speed and lets us add some extra sparks and effects after we go wild with defeating enemies using Silent Image. For level 7, we get a 3rd level of Wizard, and this grants us cantrip formulas. Switch up those cantrips for others that might be useful right now in the present moment. After all, a new addition to the arsenal is always right around the corner. For spells, we get our 2nd level spell slots, and at this point we get Misty Step and See Invisibility. Tricky devils and demons like to go invisible, and sometimes even ethereal. With See Invisibility, Dante can act the fool while perfectly seeing those opponents, try to stalk him in plain sight. Misty Step will be for those times when Dante moves so fast, it seems like he's teleporting around as well. For level 8, we get a 4th level of Wizard, and at this point we're going to round out our Intelligence and our Charisma by putting 1 point in each, using our ASI. Rounding out Intelligence at 14 and Charisma at 18 means Dante hits harder and becomes harder to hit, all while expanding his arsenal of devil arms by a tiny little bit. For spellcasting, we get the spells Shatter and Spider Climb. Shatter lets us get away with obliterating terrain for the fun factor of it. It can also be reflavored as throwing a grenade when you get your hands on it. Spider Climb, on the other hand, lets Dante run up walls and even easily balance on moving objects, like a missile for example. For level 9, we get another level of Wizard, and at this point we get 3rd level spells. The ones we're going to pick are Haste and Fly. Haste is an immensely powerful spell, and along with the large concentration save we have, it's unlikely we ever lose it. For now, the additional attack is simply a swipe of Rebellion, but next level, things are going to get particularly insane. Notably, Haste also contributes to AC, speed, and dexterity saving throws, allowing a Blade Singing Dante with Long Strider to reach 100 feet of movement and 20 AC. Fly will be part of our Devil Trigger transformation when we need that extra flying speed. Otherwise, feel free to liberally use this spell to propel Dante across the battlefield with little effort and 60 feet of flight speed. If you wish to get Cavalieri, Dante's demonic bike, feel free to scout around for the Phantom Steed ritual spell to add it to your arsenal, since you can cast it without spending any spell slots. At level 10 is when things go particularly wild with the Blade Singer's extra attack. This is where insanity begins. Dante can now swing Rebellion once and follow up with a casting of a cantrip, namely Eldritch Blast, effectively having 3 attacks per action. Additionally, this version of extra attack lets you replace one action's attack with a cantrip. If you have haste on yourself, you can then replace its singular attack from that additional attack action with Eldritch Blast, leading to 2 more attacks. Finish it up with Action Surge, and you'll net yourself a total of 2 Rebellion swings and 3 volleys of gunfire with Ebony and Ivory in the form of Eldritch Blast. That is a total of 8 attacks in a single turn for an average of 78 damage on its own and 110 with Hexblade's Curse knockout and critical hits on a 19. For the 2 spells we get at this level, we get Spirit Shroud and Glyph of Wording. Spirit Shroud is a great alternative to Hex, especially when there's a lot of enemies around you. Preventing healing and reducing movement speed is just the cherry on top of our strawberry sundae. For Glyph of Warding, those who know the channel will know what I will attempt to do with this wonderful spell. We are going to stack all the terrifying buffs we have with just a few hours of preparation. For example, if you know where your big bad is, and you save your spell slots before a big fight, ask your party to take a long rest, and spend it preparing your glyphs. Activate them as soon as everyone is ready, and tackle the boss to truly and wholeheartedly obliterate them. If this is impossible, you can always carry some in a bag of holding with a limit that you and your DM agree with. Otherwise, feel free to lay them as a trap and lure the boss out. An important note, though, is to not do this all the time. You are part of a team and everyone can shine during a boss fight. My method is that if you survive a particularly deadly boss, you can lay your Devil Trigger plan out for your party as an option to get through the hurdle and progress the story by breaking the boss in half. If you don't like this setup, feel free to grab Fireball instead. If you do, here is how to pull that mighty Devil Trigger and rack up a nasty combo on your foes. For the Devil Trigger combo, we are going to need Haste, Hexblade's Curse, and either Spirit Shroud or Hex, depending on the boss you're fighting. Place down a 3rd level Glyph of Warding containing Haste. The trigger will be that when Dante casts the ability to transform himself into his devil form using his SMR race, the spell will be cast on him. If there's lots of enemies, make sure to cast Spirit Shroud, which will be darkening your surroundings with a sinister aura before the transformation. If there's one big enemy, precast Hex, focusing Dante's hate on singular foe, and then follow up with Hexblade's Curse on the worst enemy. Then you unleash your Devil Trigger by using Celestial Revelation, and you will take this devastating turn. Your first action will be an attack, where you swing Rebellion once and take 2 blasts with Ebony and Ivory, then Action Surge for another attack with 1 more swing of Rebellion and 2 blasts from Ebony and Ivory, and then a hasted action where you replace the attack with 2 more blasts from Ebony and Ivory for an average damage of 142 with Hex and 150 with Spirit Shroud. At level 11, we get another level of Warlock. At this point, we replace Fiendish Vigor with Devil's Sight, which is essentially a prerequisite for Dante since he is half devil and all. Importantly, this means that under dim light, darkness, and magical darkness, he can see perfectly and entirely well, as if it was always bright light. This is thanks to Dark Vision making dim light bright and Devil's Sight taking care of darkness. For the Pact boon, we get Pact of the Blade. At this point, Dante has absorbed Rebellion and has become a truly devastating force to be reckoned with. On top of being able to summon Rebellion at will, Dante will further enhance it by awakening his power over the course of these levels. Actually, we will have the Devil Sword Dante when this build is complete. For the Warlock spell we get at this level, we will take the 2nd level spell, Blur. This will simply represent Dante's uncanny reflexes and immense speed being able to appear blurry by the sheer speed of his movements. Our average damage on our Devil Trigger combo also increases with 3 rays on our Eldritch Blast, going for 193 damage or 204 damage if you use Spirit Shroud. For our level 12 class choice, we're going to once again pick Warlock, and this time we get the feat Gunner, rounding out our dexterity at 16. This feat not only fits Dante's character, but it also lets us use Eldritch Blast in melee as well. We can flavor this as Ebony and Ivory at range, and either Balrog or Beowulf in melee for fast-paced combos. For our spells, we get Green Flame Blade as a cantrip, and Mirror Image as a 2nd level spell. Green Flame Blade will lead to Dante swiping Devil Sword Dante and unleashing a heat wave at a nearby enemy, searing them along with another foe when a little hellfire is needed. Mirror Image will be a temporary spell that we're going to replace next level, but for now, it's another addition to Dante's tremendous speed, leaving after images in his foe's perception. And now we get to the next level. We're going to get yet another level of Warlock, and this time we get the invocation Eldritch Smite. To truly land the smackdown on foes, we'll get a little caught out in the middle of the combo. For spells, we will remove Mirror Image and get the spells Counterspell and Thunderstep. When you need to save someone, you bring them with you on your near teleport instant movement with Thunderstep. It might damage the area a little, but what's property damage anyway? Spell on the other end is your Royal Guard, improved against enemy magic and demonic energies. Just don't forget to taunt your foes along with it. Our proficiency bonus increases as well, which means more damage. Our average damage for our Devil Trigger is 205 with Hex and 216 with Spirit Shroud. At level 14, we get another level of Warlock, and this grants us a Cursed Spectre. While it isn't particularly useful, when you slay a humanoid, which will be nearly never, make sure to give them a final monologue to make your DM a whole lot happier. For our spells, we get the 3rd level spell Major Image. In other words, more tools to party, creating a whole stage and have your solo dance session after beating some demons. For level 15, we get another level of Warlock, and the invocation we get at this point is Relentless Hex. This invocation completes Dante's repeated teleporting, especially if you can stick Hex on a singular, powerful foe. Weaponizing your bonus action to look dashing has never been so easy. For our spell, we get Psychic Lance as a 4th level spell at this level. This allows us to summon spectral swords and impale our foes with mirages of demonic energy. Psychic Lance will leave them unable to take actions or reactions as they reel from the terrible damage. This is now a perfect time to deal with those pesky sorcerers and magic casters with some good old attacks. For level 16, we get an 8th level of Warlock, and we will max out our Charisma with our ability score increase, putting 2 points in it. Now that it's maxed out, our Devil Trigger combo is inching closer to its final power. Our average damage now sits at 216 with Hex and 227 with Spirit Shroud. For the spell we will take Banishment. Send those pesky demons packing with a rending blow from Devil Sword Dante. Casting a point-blank banishment is technically the same. At level 17, we get yet another level of Warlock, and at this point we get the invocation Eldritch Mind. Our concentration is now safely secure. Adding proficiency, constitution modifier, and intelligence modifier, along with advantage, we are safe to truly take blows in style. Otherwise, Royal Guard works just fine as well. For our final spells, in 5th level, we will get Banishing Smite and Synaptic Static. Now that is a Banishing Sword Strike, ensuring a load of damage, insight on enemy health, and a little time to reposition before bringing them back to continue the combo when your turn is on again. Synaptic Static, on the other hand, is used in your Devil Trigger to cause a large explosion in front of you and ravage a group of foes with disorienting demonic energies. At this level, our Devil Trigger reaches even more power, with Eldritch Blast getting 4 total raise and proficiency reaching +6. Our average damage is 288 with Hex and 302 with Spirit Shroud. Truly devastating results, but we're going to be squeezing more damage out of it. For level 18, we get a 10th level of Warlock, and this grants us the ability Armor of Hexes. Focused on an enemy, and they manage to hit you, and you don't want to be hit, just pull a little bit of Royal Guard and absolutely nullify their damage. Most of the time, that is. For spells, we get a singular cantrip Blade Ward at this level, and this will simply represent how Dante is becoming progressively more and more resilient to physical harm. His defense and resilience are feats that he can very much create on a whim. At level 19, we get an 11th level of Warlock, and this grants us our first and only Mystic Arcanum of 6th level, which we will get to be Circle of Death. When you transform into your Devil Trigger, mark the ground in a massive area with a hellish sigil, and absolutely obliterate it with a mass of demonic necrotic damage. Swarmed? Well, yeah, you know what? That's not gonna happen. For our packed spells, we finally get 3 slots of 5th level, and we will get the 5th level spell Hold Monster. Hold Monster is Dante's ability to break an enemy's guard, leaving them completely at the mercy of his relentless combos. Get up close and personal to get those guaranteed critical hits, and make sure to hurt them bad. Bonus points if you get a Devil Trigger before it. At level 20, we finish off this build with a 12th level of Warlock and the Meta Magic Adept feat. The options we choose are Quicken Spell to get a little bit of extra power out of the Devil Trigger and last away as a bonus action for 4 whole attacks, and Extended Spell. When you know you won't be needing your Devil Trigger, you make sure to extend those defensive spells and enjoy a nearly day-long mage armor. For invocations, we get Life Drinker at this level, which lets Devil Sword Dante deal even more damage, namely 1d8 plus 12 on each hit, not counting other bonuses. With Haste, Spirit Shroud, or Hex, Celestial Revelation, Hexblade's Curse, and a Quicken Eldritch Blast, this puts Dante's damage potential at 378 with Hex and 390 with Spirit Shroud on average. If you are facing a foe with particularly pesky AC, make sure to knock them down with an Eldritch Smite, and then follow up with advantage on all your point-blank Eldritch Blast. Thanks to Gunner. This would make both Sparta and Doomslayer very, very proud.
Jackpot!
For pros and cons, we're going to be starting with the pros. Dante has massive Nova damage when he unleashes his Devil Trigger, and his sustained damage is also pretty high. He can gobble pizza and sundaes all day long without his health getting too injured or his concentration getting disrupted. And talking of that, his concentration is extremely well protected, adding Constitution, Proficiency, Intelligence, and Advantage whenever it does have to be rolled. He does also have a lot of short rest recovery and extremely varied spellcasting, along with an intense amount of damage, quite unmatched by many other builds. For cons, Dante is very multiple ability score dependent, since we use Intelligence, Charisma, Constitution, and Dexterity pretty equally all across this build, with, to be fair, a little extra focus on Charisma. There's also no higher level spellcasting, so the shenanigans will have to come from your Devil Trigger, or your particularly creative use of Glyph of Warding. Dante also doesn't learn much from life experiences, since his wisdom is quite low and his mind can get affected by things that humans do, more than demons. And his saving throws, as I've just said, are also pretty measly. He does tend to just laugh in the face of danger and then usually injure the consequences. Finally, this is also very reliant on finding yourself a magical longsword or a magical rapier, or heck, even a magical weapon of any kind, so that the flavor can truly come out. And that's it for this episode of How Would You Build, focusing on the son of Sparta, wielder of rebellion, Dante from the show of Devil May Cry. I hope that you've all enjoyed it, that you agree with me on some of these build decisions. if you have different opinions or if you prefer to build Dante with a little bit less intelligence and a lot more strength and charisma, maybe even as a barbarian, you can totally do that as well. Feel free to drop your character suggestions using the 2014 or 2024 rules down in the comments. Maybe do a little subscribble if you want to see more of these builds, because that is definitely the single best way to tell me that you want to see more lore accurate builds from me. And I will be seeing you all very, very soon, be it here on the Discord or maybe even on my coffee for more cozy little D&D builds and more lore accurate characters. Make sure to stay healthy, adventurers, and I will see you all very soon. Bye bye!